The true character of society is revealed in how it treats its children. That was Nelson Mandela in 1997. On this program, how is Kenya protecting vulnerable children?
When it comes to children, we have Article 53 of the Constitution that sets out the rights of the children, and the Children's Act.
Child adoption, what you should know.
For one to adopt, they have to first approach a registered adoption society.
Children's homes, their mandate and regulation.
Do recognize the very, very important role that charitable children institutions play in terms of providing temporary shelter and care for children.
Welcome to the program. I'm Alex Chamwada, and as usual, we begin with our fact sheet.
The number of orphans and vulnerable children in Kenya is increasing by the day. According to UNICEF, approximately 3.6 million Kenyan children are orphans or otherwise classified as vulnerable. Most of these children end up in charitable children institutions. Approximately 40,000 to 42,000 orphans and vulnerable children are living in children's homes.
Protection system is more reactive than preventative. We have not been able to put mechanisms in place in the first place to prevent children from being in need of care and protection. Because of lack of those systems, we find that institutional care has become a quick and the most convenient care system in Kenya. So anybody who comes across a child, the first place they think of is a CCI.
Kenya has assented to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. The rights of children in Kenya are enshrined in the Constitution.
When it comes to children, we have Article 53 of the Constitution that sets out the rights of the children, and the Children's Act. And everything the judiciary is required to do is set out within the Children's Act and within the Constitution. And there are also other statutes where children would be mentioned and issues of children would arise, and the role of the judiciary is to implement those particular statutes.
Matters pertaining childcare and protection in Kenya are handled by the juvenile justice system. The agencies and institutions that are involved include the courts, the police, children's services, probation services, statutory institutions such as Boston Corrective Centers, and the charitable children institutions, also known as children's homes.
Very well, today we are focusing on protecting children. And as we move on this show, Elijah Mwangi is now all set to tell us more about the process of child adoption in Kenya.
Child adoption is one of the most controversial issues in childcare and protection. Let's start by looking at what the law says about child adoption.
The specific law is actually the Children's Act, and we have regulations we refer to as the Adoption Regulations 2005, and we also have the Foreign Resident Regulations, and we also have the Hague Convention on Intercountry Adoption. Those laws are the ones that guide the adoption process in Kenya. The Children's Act is actually very specific, that for one to adopt, they have to first approach a registered adoption society. The registered adoption society is the one that matches them with the child. There's a false notion out there that people walk into children's homes, pinpoint a child, and then say that they want to adopt that child. That is actually not allowed, and that is what we refer to as pre-selection. You are supposed to approach a registered adoption society that will vet you and match you with a child. The law requires you to stay with such a child for 3 months, a consecutive period for you to bond with a child. Once you have sufficiently bonded with a child under the supervision of the registered adoption society, that's when you start the legal process in the High Court.
Phyllis Kamau is a social worker. She has been working in the children's sector for some time, and according to her, people need to understand that child adoption is a process that involves multiple institutions.
We deal with the registered adoption agencies in Kenya, and we work hand in hand because we have to have all the documents that are required for a child to be free. By free, I mean a child have to have the committal order from the court, from the children's court. We have to have the 2 police letters if the case was abandoned. We have to have the mother of a consent form if the child was mother of a child. When you get all the documents, we present them to the adoption societies where they free the child for adoption. By freeing, according to the fathers that I know, they have a committee which goes through the documents.
One of the key institutions involved in child adoption is the judiciary. The courts issue adoption orders. Justice Madheka has been handling cases involving children in contact or in conflict with the law at the High Court. She tells us how the courts ensure that the interests of the child are prioritized in sensitive cases such as child adoption.
When you think about best interest, the court will be asking itself, what does this child need right now? What do I need to ensure, as I hear this case, that the welfare of the well-being of this child has been taken care of? What orders do I need to make to protect the rights of this child? Okay? Who is best suited to take care of this child? Because sometimes those will be the issues. Yeah? For example, if I can give you an example, a child who has been defiled, for example, okay, they are brought to court. You know, the court will be needing to know, has this child been treated? Have they been cancelled? If they have been abused within the home setting, have they been rescued from that home setting and taken to a place of safety?
In a special report submitted to the President, Susan Muchache, the Principal Secretary, State Department of Social Protection, highlighted that the process of adopting child in Kenya has focused more on the parent than the child.
The fact of the matter and the truth of the issue today in Kenya, adoption is a very lucrative business for anybody engaging with it, because the law does allow that the children institution that is giving up a child or providing a child to be adopted can charge the adoptive parent for having taken care of that child, even as we wait to do a complete review of the adoption laws, which is going to make it very, very, very tight in terms of the process of actually getting a child out for adoption. In the meantime, before we get there, that perhaps is to remove the financial incentive behind adoption.
Samuel Gishigi is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He has dealt with a number of cases on child adoption, and according to him, many children are haphazardly placed for adoption.
We ought to deal with, to have structures that handle children from the hospital at childbirth, people trained at the police stations, because usually when a child is abandoned or neglected, it's taken to a police station. When they find a normal police officer, he will look for the next person around and start asking, including the female officers, ni nani anaenda kulala na huyu mtoto ni usiku. Let it be very clear that if a child is brought to a police station, there is a specific trained police officers who will handle those children. It is clear where that child is supposed to be taken. Sometimes juveniles are taken to the cells to sleep with the adults. Let it be very clear that at this police station, if a child is brought, that child is supposed to be taken to a certain home, a rescue center, I think that is what they call them.
The matter has now grabbed the attention of the National Assembly. The lawmakers are in the process of amending the Children's Act.
Currently, the Children's Act allows multiple agencies to undertake child adoption, and the miscellaneous amendment seeks to put all this under the umbrella of the Child Welfare Society. I know the Child Welfare Society was made like an almost semi-autonomous government agency, but it cannot handle the number of adoptions in the country, and it can also not manage all the cases of adoption. And again, because of the way adoptions are done, it is important that other agencies be able to undertake adoption. You can't have one agency alone undertaking adoption.
According to the policy and our law, there is no official organization that has been declared to be the government body that should receive children that are abandoned or neglected. There's none. My understanding of that particular provision is that people who get these children, social workers, children's officers, the police, and even Kenyans, they ought to know that other than that, maybe just taking the child to a police station or just staying with it and not reporting anywhere. There is actually an organization that is mandated, is actually funded by the government to take care of our children.
The issue of the conflict of interest. How do you hold children? How do you process adoption? At the same time, regulate yourself and provide oversight to yourself. Because adoption should always have checks and balances. Different institutions bring different role. There is one providing regulation and oversight. There is one implementing.
Whether it is favoring one society or the other, I would say that possibly that could be said so, yes, that could be true. But however, what I would want is that at the end of the day, having spoken to the representatives from other adoption societies, all they would want is to be assured that they will have a chance to be validly vetted and registered and licensed to operate in Kenya.
I also want to believe that the Labour Committee, in its wisdom, is looking at these matters and also understands very well that there is absolutely no intention to deregister through the law private adoption society. So they will continue to operate, even with the passing of the miscellaneous amendments, if they do go through in Parliament.
As adoption agencies in Kenya wait to see how things will unfold after the bill is passed, Muteru Njama from Change Trust, an organization that deals with child adoptions, wishes more Kenyans would appreciate the process of formal adoptions.
Adoption is a beautiful process. 30% of Kenyans in urban areas living in married situations have been shown not to be able to get their own biological children. On the other side, Kenya has one of the highest number of children living in orphanages in the world. So there's a big mismatch. Many people wanting to get children through adoption, many children in children's homes. Now, somewhere those two should come together. The only barrier here is information.
On that note, we take a short break. Still to come.
We focus on the children on the streets, but we have very many neglected children in homes.
Stakeholders in child care and protection and regulation of children's homes in Kenya. Welcome back. On today's show, we are focusing on protecting children. Time now to look at the various stakeholders in child care and protection, as well as regulating children's homes in Kenya.
Charitable children institutions, CCIs, are the most visible organizations in the communities offering first-line care, support and protection to children. Yet most overshadowed, underrepresented and more often blamed for the crisis in the children's sector.
Like in every sector, we have some extremely good CCIs. Philanthropic to the last coin, to the last child. They truly intend to help our children. And I say kudos to those CCIs. But I've also come across a few, not many, a few of them who are actually in business. We have very good CCIs, we have raw CCIs, and I think the regulation, when it's actually imposed, it's supposed to actually to deal with the rotten apples. Let us not condemn everybody because of the few CCIs that we have.
The information about the number of registered charitable children institutions, commonly referred to as children's homes here in Kenya, is a bit scanty, but going by the data from the Department of Children's Services, the number of registered CCIs in Kenya is around 700. Now, these CCIs play a critical role when it comes to childcare and protection.
There are no sufficient government institutions to hold these children. So therefore, the charitable children institutions come in very handy. Every court will be asking, where will I take this child? And who comes handy? The CCI. Because they will be called and they'll give the child a place to stay as you wait to deal with your matter. They'll give them a place, they'll have a place to sleep, to eat, to dress, you know, they can have a temporary place to stay. This child needs a home, they need care, they need attention, they need love, they need to go to school. CCIs have come in handy. We used to commit them to the CCIs until they are 18 years old. You know, the child comes and you commit them until they are 18, so the CCI can now release them when they get older. Then the CCI takes care. Now we have a directive, you commit them for 3 years. Every 3 years you commit them, because the government has now a policy to deinstitutionalize children. And you can talk to any magistrate handling children matters or judge, and they'll tell you how handy they come in when you have a child who has nowhere to go and the case must be heard.
In the child care protection centers, we should engage medics.
Recently, Association of Charitable Children Institutions organized a national symposium on childcare and protection. While highlighting the critical role played by CCIs, Chief Justice David Maraga emphasized on focusing the attention to those children who are still in the communities to avoid more numbers in care institutions.
We focus on the children on the streets, but we have very many neglected children in homes. You have sometimes seen news flashes of children being beaten by house helps. I see that as a serious challenge, because young mothers and fathers have got to work, so somebody has to stay at home and take care of those children. But let me tell you that these young parents sometimes forget their main duty, their main responsibility.
Let us share when we are here, form networks that are working.
The debate on deinstitutionalization continues to take the center stage in many conversations on child protection. While it's common knowledge that children are best raised in a family setup, interacting with a caregiver, or rather someone who has gone through a children's home, one understands better the critical role played by these institutions.
I was born in Cliff County at a place called Bale, Pastarabuko, Sokoke Forest.
Yes.
So then I went to Bale Primary School up to class 8. That is in the year 2008. After completing my KSP exam, I passed so well, but there were no school fees from my family to support me for paying for my high school. Now then, I stayed back at home the whole of the year, just in the streets, struggling with life. Then there was one neighbor who advised me that there's an organization in Nairobi who takes some children who are in need, so that they can sponsor them and train them in some training so that they can support their lives. That's when I hustled for transport, for bus fare, from Cliffy to Nairobi to come and see the organization so they can train in welding and fabrication. That's when I found myself in North Africa. The first day, I attended the fabrication class, the welding and fabrication class. Then after the lessons at break time, they asked for my documents. Now then I gave them the KSP result slip plus the certificate. So after the director looked at the results, I had 344 marks. But then he advised me if I'm willing to join high school. So that was the opportunity. Children's homes, they should not be closed or to be ended, because there are so many people in the streets who are in need of care and protection. Like for instance, when I was in high school, when I talked with my friends, they would tell me stories about their homes, the way they face domestic violence, they stay in the home without food, such cases. So there are a lot. If they want to end the institution, maybe first they can sensitize the parents and the community to know about their parental responsibility, so that to minimize the cases of child abuse back in the community. Currently, I'm volunteering at North Africa Children's Home and Training Center because the place that nurtured me to be whom I am today. They still sponsored me in college. Up to now, I'm graduating.
What did you study in college?
I studied Bachelor of Science in Tourism Management. Yeah. That's when, in the coming November, I'm graduating.
From which college?
Karatina University.
Oh, okay. Another institution that comes in handy in child protection is the probation services. The institution handles children in conflict with the law.
We supervise children offenders in conflict with the law. And the process starts when an offender is arrested out there. That's a child offender. And he's charged in the police station and arraigned in court. If you look at the laws that guide the magistrates or the courts on how to handle issues of children in conflict with the law, what we call the Children's Act. Section 191, probation orders and community service orders are one of the options, are some of the options that the court can use to treat a child offender or to dispose of a case of a child offender. And therefore, before that decision is made, the case is referred to the department. We have various stations. So wherever there is a court, you'll find a probation office and a probation officer in that court. And therefore, the case is referred. It is noted by our officers, and we start the process of inquiries, what we call inquiries, interviewing the child, interviewing the community, interviewing the family, assessing the environment. And then we come up with an informed decision which helps the court to make informed decision.
The Department of Children's Services is the lead government department mandated with safeguarding and protecting the rights and welfare of children in Kenya. On the other hand, the National Council for Children's Services is the regulatory body.
That marks the end of our show today. Keep the conversation going. Remember, our hashtag is protecting children. Remember, you can still find us on our YouTube channel, Chams Media channel. And on behalf of the crew, thank you so much for watching. But remember to keep this conversation going. Our hashtag is protecting children. I'm your host, Alex Chamwada. See you again next week. Bye-bye.